Welcome everyone to Include NYC Online, enjoying books with reluctant readers and other fun activities. My name is Rich Overton. I'll be your operational support today. Our family educators, Sasha Bueno and Julianne Tosi, will be leading today's discussion. And a quick note, today's online webinar is a collaboration between the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities and Include NYC to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. A little about Include NYC. For more than 3 decades, we have been helping young people with disabilities, their families, and professionals. We help New York City families make informed decisions about special education, navigate disability systems, and advocate for themselves. We offer workshops, a helpline, and resources which we are adapting to respond to coronavirus-related school closures. You can find online workshops, parent support groups, and live streams on the Include NYC website calendar. If you have individual questions and would like to speak to an educator, please call the Include NYC helpline at 212-677-4660 or 212-677-4668 for Spanish. You can also fill out a help request form on our website at www.includenyc.org. And please subscribe to our emails on our website homepage or follow us on social media at IncludeNYC. And now I would like to welcome Sasha Bueno and Julianne Tosi, our family educators, who are today's presenters.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sasha Bueno, and I am currently an educator here at Include NYC and formerly an NYC early childhood education teacher.
Hi, and I'm Julianne Tosi. I'm also a family educator at Include NYC, and I am a former elementary school teacher here in New York City. And we are so honored to be with you here today to celebrate Disability Pride and to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act remotely. And we want to give a big thank you to the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities for having us today. So today we're going to talk about we're going to have some fun talking about enjoying books with reluctant readers and other fun activities. And we're going to share a book with you all, and then we'll have some time to talk about some ideas for learning at home.
As Rich mentioned, we are a support, training, and information center for young people with disabilities 0 to 26, their families, and the professionals who work with them. We provide support through free workshops, event like this one, our website, includenyc.org, and we are also available via our helpline for direct one-on-one assistance. Our helpline information is in the chat, and it is also available in the resources sent via email.
So let's dive right into our main event. Today we're going to start with a read aloud of a really great book called Alma and How She Got Her Name. And this will be a great time for kids to join in with us. Throughout the read aloud, we're going to be demonstrating some strategies, asking questions that you guys can use at home, tailored to ages 2 to 10. And they can join in to answer those questions and participate as well. Following our read aloud, we are going to talk about some other read at home tips and ideas. And then we are going to talk about what you might do if you're worried about your child's academic progress. So most of the tips that we will be using will be from our tip sheet, Enjoying Books with Reluctant Readers. Hopefully you guys received that by email, but if you haven't, Rich is going to pop that into the chat box. And as Rich mentioned, please feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A and utilize the chat box for any ideas you have. We're going to be asking for some participation. We're going to be asking questions, so you can put any of your ideas into the chat box. And we'd also love if you guys could introduce yourself in the chat box now, maybe just sharing your name and your children's ages or whatever information you feel like sharing. We'll give you all a moment to see if you want to introduce yourselves. Hi, Linda, and your 3-year-old.
Hi, Linda.
Okay, we'll just give one more moment. Go preschool. Preschool at home. Hi, Alice, and Luke, and Katie. Hi, Elsie.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Ronnie. Hi, Shakaya. All right, we're going to keep going, but welcome, everyone. We're really glad you're here. We're really glad you can continue to introduce yourselves as we go, but we are really excited, so we want to get started with our read-aloud.
All right, so for this portion of the story, I will be using the physical book, but when it is time for the story, we will be switching to the screen and I will be turning off my video for better Wi-Fi access. Before I start reading, I like to ask myself a few questions. I like to ask myself, Sasha, why did you choose this book? Well, I chose this book because I like to learn about people and their cultures. Thinking about why I chose this book helps me learn about the kinds of books I like to read. So, when introducing books to early and emergent readers, it is important to point out the features of a book. This may be the first time they are interacting with the book or simply may not know this information yet. You can do this like so. Today, we are going to read a book, but before we start reading, we are going to look at the different parts of the book. This part is called the front cover. This part is called the back cover. And this part is called the spine. Let's look down, and I'm also noticing some print. Let's look down here. I'm noticing that there's a name, Juana Martinez Neal. This lets us know who the author is. The author writes the words. And because there is only one name, this lets us know that she is also the illustrator. The illustrator draws the pictures. For this particular book, the author and the illustrator are the same person, but usually there is one person for each book. Next, we have the title. The title is the name of the story and gives us an idea of what the story will be about. The title of this book is Alma and How She Got Her Name. One more thing we can do before we read the words in the book is a picture walk. You might be wondering, what is a picture walk? Well, a picture walk is when you open the book and you go through the story and talk about the pictures that you see. The picture walk also gives us an idea of what the story is going to be about, and it helps us make predictions. I will start with the cover and do a picture walk of the first few pages. You can join me on this at home, and you could talk about the pictures that you see as well. So, I see that there is a little girl holding a pencil. On this page, I see a little girl, the same little girl from the cover. She has a bird on her head and she is writing. She looks a little bit sad. Over here, I see some print on paper, and I also see some tape attached to the paper. I wonder what that's about. Here, I see a man grabbing a book from a bookshelf. I also see some flowers in the bookshelf and a piggy bank. I also see the little girl leaning in. She has the paper in her hand, and now the little birdie is on the floor. On this page, I notice that it's the same picture from the one in the back cover. It's the man and the little girl sitting on his lap, and it looks like they are reading a story. Over here, I see what looks like an old photograph of a woman. I wonder who that is. So, typically, I would keep going throughout the entire book and back cover, but for today, I would like to talk about making predictions before reading the story. Before reading a story, I like to make predictions. A prediction is when you make a guess about what the story about what the story is going to be about. What do you think the story is going to be about? You can talk about this at home with your family, or you can share your thoughts in the chat. I predict this story is going to be about a little girl named Alma and her dad is going to tell her a story. Let's get reading to find out more. You will notice we ask ourselves lots of questions as we read. My partner, Julianne, will take it away with the story. I'm going to hide myself and share my screen now.
Thank you, Sasha. As she's sharing the story on the screen, we just want to let you know, any questions that we ask, feel free to discuss at home. Feel free to share your ideas in the chat box. We might not stop to read all of them, but it's a great opportunity for everyone to see each other's ideas. So let's get started with the story. This book is called Alma and How She Got Her Name by Juana Martinez Neal. Alma, Sofia, Esperanza, Jose, Pura, Candela had a long name. Too long, if you ask her. I can see on this picture, it looks like she wrote her name, but it was so long she had to add extra paper on. My name is so long, Daddy. It never fits, Alma said. Come here, he said. Let me tell you the story of your name. Then you decide if it fits. So I want to pause here because it's sounding to me like Alma is already having a problem. And stories usually have a problem. So let's think, what is Alma's problem? If you'd like, you can talk about this with your family at home. So I'm thinking that the problem that Alma is having is that her name is too long. And I'm thinking that because it says it right here in the text. My name is so long. And she says it never fits. So now I've looked at the text and I thought about the problem, but I want to understand the problem and how Alma is feeling about it a little bit better. So I'm not only going to use the words that I just read, but I'm also going to look at the pictures. So remember, Alma said that her name is too long and it never fits. And when we look at Alma on this page, we can see that she's hunched over, and we can look right at her face and see that her cheeks are red, her mouth is kind of scrunched up, her eyes are sort of turned down, and she's looking up at her daddy. So when I look at her, I feel like she looks kind of sad or frustrated. So knowing the words she said and looking at the picture, I think that right now Alma is feeling confused and frustrated about her name. So feel free to share your ideas in the chat or chat about it with your family. But we're going to keep reading too. Sophia was your grandmother, he began. She loved books, poetry, jasmine flowers, and of course, me. She was the one who taught me how to read. What do you see in the picture, guys? I see Alma sitting on her daddy's lap. Looks like he's looking either at a photo album or a storybook. I love books and flowers, and you too, Daddy. I am Sophia. And here she looks a little happier. Now she's smiling. She's sitting on a pile of books. I feel like this could be a good spot for us to pause and make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen next? We've already learned about one of her names, Sophia. What might happen next? Esperanza was your great-grandmother, he continued. She hoped to travel, but never left the city where she was born. Her only son grew up to cross the 7 seas. Wherever her sailor son went, so did Esperanza's heart. What do you guys see in this picture? Alma's face kind of looks curious. She's looking at that photo. The world is so big. I want to go see it, Daddy. You and me together. I am Esperanza. So we've already learned quite a bit about Alma, and I want to pause here because when we read, we can pause to keep track of the important parts. And this feels like a good place to kind of pause and make sure that we understand everything that's happened so far. So let's think, what has happened that is important? So when I think about the beginning of the book, Alma was frustrated with her long name. And then her daddy said he would share the story of her name. And now we've learned that two of her names, Sophia and Esperanza, both come from her relatives. What do you guys think? You might want to chat with your family. So as you guys continue to think, we want to show you another strategy that you might use while you're reading, and that is to take breaks. So we feel like this might be a good time to take a quick break, because sometimes having these short little breaks, time where we can turn off our brain for a second, it helps us to stay focused. So today we're going to take a 1-minute break, and during that break you can do anything that helps you relax. And this is something that you can do at home as well. So some things you might do, you might stretch, you might dance, you might make funny noises or sing, or even just close your eyes and take a rest. Maybe you have to use the bathroom. Whatever helps you relax and can get you focused. So you can also use this time to share any ideas that you have about the story, like maybe a prediction that you have in the chat box. So we're going to put a timer on for 1 minute. And when you're at home, it's helpful to use timers so that everyone knows when it's time to get back to reading. So we're going to take 1 minute. You can do whatever you want. So I like to stretch my neck. Sometimes I like to wiggle my hands to get any wiggliness out so that I can concentrate. Sometimes walking around is helpful. Making silly noises. Exercising, doing jumping jacks. And when we get close to the end of the break, we will start to count down so everyone knows it's time to get back to reading. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when we hear our timer, we know it's time to get back. So again, that's something that you can try at home to keep everybody focused on the story. Maybe it's a longer story. Before we go on, I'm just going to check the chat box, see if there's anything to share. All right, it looks like we can keep moving. Let's finish the rest of the story, see what happens to Alma.
Thanks, Julianne. I found that break to be super helpful for my focus. Now let's get back into the story. Jose was my father, Alma's daddy said. He was an artist with a big family, like many people had back then. Early each morning, he walked to the mountains and the plazas to paint everyday life. Sometimes I went along. Your grandfather taught me to see and love our people. Sometimes you can use the pictures to help you understand the words better. And here, I see that the words match the picture. Jose, her grandfather, is painting the everyday life of the people in the mountains, and Alma looks happy to see her grandfather painting. I wake up early every day, and I draw a lot too. This morning, I drew a kitty cat for you, Daddy. I am Jose. Now we see why Alma is holding the pencil on the cover. She likes to draw and make art. Do you like to make art? Buddha was your great aunt. She believed that the spirits of our ancestors are always with us, watching over us. When you were born, she tied a red string around your wrist, a charm to keep you safe. Pura is actually a word in Spanish that can be used for a name. Pura means pure. I noticed that Pura is lighting a candle and there are spiritual things all around her. And Alma looks happy to be next to her. Hello, Pura. It's me, Alma. Let's look at Alma. How do you think she feels about her name? I see that she's standing close to her great aunt. She may feel safe with her. And I see that she is smiling and looking up at her. I think she is feeling happy. What do you think? Candela was your other grandmother. She always stood up for what was right. What do you see in the picture? Remember, readers can use the pictures to learn more. I see people holding signs. It looks like Candela's at a protest. She must be fighting for something she believes in, which makes sense because candela is also a Spanish word that means fire, flame, or too hot. And I also see Alma and her daddy. Do you think they really are there? Or do you think she's using her imagination? I think Alma may be using her imagination since her daddy is telling her stories about her name. I am Candela. Wow, I am noticing something special about this picture. How about you? You can share what you notice with your family or in the chat. What I think is special about this picture is that we are able to see all the items in Alma's life that show how her personality is a little bit like all of her relatives she was named after. I see drawings, dolls, red string, flowers, spiritual things, paint, and lastly, she is holding up a protest sign like her grandmother, Candela. I love the story of my name. Now, tell me about Alma, Daddy. Where does that come from? I picked the name Alma just for you. You are the first and only Alma. You will make your own story. Looking at the emotions and actions of the story helps us understand how a character's feelings may change throughout the story. At the beginning, I thought she felt frustrated and confused. What does your frustrated face look like? Show your family members. And now let's look at Alma's face. In the picture, she is smiling. I think she is feeling happy about her name. What does your happy face look like? Show your family members. In the story, Alma's feelings change from frustrated and confused to happy. Alma Sofia Esperanza Pura Candela. That's my name, and it fits me just right. I am Alma, and I have a story to tell. The end. I'm going to go back to you, Julianne.
Thanks, Sasha. That was such an amazing journey that Alma went on. I'm so glad that we got to share that journey with her. So let's continue and think a little bit about the whole story. So at the end of books, something that I like to do, again, just like I did in the middle, is I like to think about the important things that happened. So let's think, what were the important events? I kind of like to split it up into what was the beginning, what was the middle, and what was the end. So think about that for a moment. So at the beginning of the story, Alma does not really like her name because she feels like it's too long. And then in the middle, Alma learns the story of each part of her name. And then at the end, Alma's feelings changed. She likes her name and she feels like it fits her just right. So we just thought about the whole story and we summed it up into the beginning, the middle, and the end. Another thing that I like to do at the end of a story is to kind of think about how we can connect the story to ourselves and to the world. And so I like to think about what we've learned. So let's ask, is the author Juana Martinez Neal teaching us a lesson? Think about that. I think it can be helpful, but to think about what Alma learned in the story. So in the story, Alma learns about her name and she learns about her family, and it helps her to be proud of who she is. So maybe the author is trying to teach us to be proud of who we are and where we come from. And I think that's such an important lesson for us to all learn.
Thanks again for listening to this wonderful story, Alma and How She Got Her Name, with us. In the story, I noticed that Alma really enjoyed creating things. So if you have paper and something to draw with, you can create your own piece of art too. You can retell the story through pictures, or you can draw your favorite part of the story. You can even make a comic strip, or you could turn the story into a play and act it out. If you have a device, you can record it as a movie. You can also ask your family members about the story of your name and make your own storybook about your name. Any way you choose to retell, be sure to think about the important parts of the story in the order that they happen. You can also use the chat box to share any final thoughts about the story. Thank you again for reading the story with us. Julianne will now be going over some strategies from our tip sheet.
Thanks, Sasha. And while Sasha is switching our screen to show the tip sheet, I just want to share a few ideas that were in the chat box. Ronnie said that she really loved the story and the message. We love it too. And Maggie said that she likes how the author used the word fit in many different ways throughout the story. So she said her name didn't fit on one page, so Alma didn't think her name fit her, but by the end, she knew that her name did fit. And I think that is a great thing that we can all take away from that story. So thank you guys for sharing your ideas. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to review some of the strategies that we just used during this read aloud. So most of these strategies that we used, that we tried out today, are simply questioning strategies, and they're ideas that you can find on your Enjoying Books with Reluctant Readers tip sheet on the second page in the bottom section called Guiding Questions. So we tried a bunch of these strategies out today. And we're just going to chat about why we did that. So you may have noticed that before we started reading the book, we looked at the covers and we looked at the pictures and we asked, what do you see? We also asked ourselves, why did you choose this book? Another thing we did is we made a prediction by asking, what do you think the book will be about? And then we flipped through the pages to look at the pictures. We did that picture walk, and we thought, what information do the images give you? So we do all of this to get the reader's brains ready for the story. It's easier to keep track of the plot if you have a framework in your mind to start off with. So if you have some starting information and sort of an outline in your brain to fit the story into, it's a bit easier to keep track of. And then once we started reading the story, we continued to use some questioning strategies. So you may have noticed that during the story, we looked again at the pictures and we thought, what do the different characters look like? We thought about how the characters feel and what in the pictures and the text shows us that. We also paused to think, what are the major events in the book so far? And we continued to make predictions. We asked, what will happen next? So the reason that we use all of these strategies and these questions is to check our understanding of the book as we go, so that we can gain a deeper comprehension and so that we can make meaning of the story. What we're really encouraging our readers to do is to practice out loud the things that skilled readers do in their head without even thinking about it. So, for example, when reading novels, many adult readers use clues in the book to make predictions or assumptions about how the story is going to go. So just to give you an example, let's say you're reading a book, or maybe you're even watching one of your favorite TV shows, and you're thinking, I know exactly how this is going to end. I can call this. So you're using all of those reading skills that you have automatically. But for our beginning readers, they have to build these skills. And so we ask them questions like, what do you think will happen next? How do you know? What in the text makes you think that? Asking these sorts of questions helps them to build that type of thinking and helps them move to automaticity so that they can call the ending like we tend to do when we're reading or watching a TV show. So then once the story was over, we continued to do a little bit of thinking. So we thought about the whole story, we thought about the beginning, the middle, and the end, and we sort of retold or recapped the story, we summarized it. And we also considered how we could connect the story to the world and to our own lives. So we asked, what life lesson can we learn from this book? We also asked, do you know the story of your name? So we connected what Alma was doing in the story to what we might do at home. So the reason that we do these things after we read a story is to recap our reading and to build our recall and summary skills, and also to build an understanding that reading is about more than just that individual story, but it's about exploring our curiosity and learning about life and learning about the world and learning about ourselves. So just simple questions like that can actually do a lot for a reader. So all of these questions and these points of discussion for before, during, and after reading, again, are on the tip sheet in this guiding questions section that you can see on the screen right now. Feel free to try any of these at home so that you can engage in a lively reading discussion with your child. Before we go on, we want to make note of just a few additional things. So first off, please don't feel like you have to try all of these questions or do all of these strategies every single time you read. We used a lot of them today just for the purpose of demonstration, and we showed you how we might use the questions, how we might take breaks, but you don't have to pack them in every time you read. So you might choose one or two to focus on. So it's really important that readers do have chunks of uninterrupted reading time where they can really focus on the story. You want to keep their interest. You don't want to overwhelm them. So we don't want to pack every single question every time. However, it can be great to really hone in on one skill. So maybe you are focusing on making predictions. So maybe throughout the story, you're repeatedly asking, what do you think will happen next? What do you think will happen next? What do you think will happen next? So you can use these questions in various ways. It's also sometimes when you read a story, the story kind of just tells you what questions to ask. You can kind of feel that there's a right spot for a certain question. So you can kind of use your intuition when you're reading and when you're deciding what questions to ask as well. Additionally, these strategies can be tailored to your child's reading level. So for beginning readers, we would focus more on the pictures and on simply talking about what we see. And then as the readers get older and more sophisticated, we'll start pressing them for more discussion. So we would ask them how they came up with an answer to the question. We would ask them for evidence from the pictures. And then as they get more sophisticated, we would ask them for evidence from the text, specific text evidence. So you can use these same questions across a range of reading levels, a range of ages in this way, just by simply tailoring how much discussion you're pressing for and what type of evidence. And last, whatever you do, just keep in mind that the goal is to build a love and an understanding of reading. We want it to be a fun, enjoyable process that kids fall in love with. So with that in mind, we're going to move over to Sasha, and she's going to discuss some ways to make reading accessible and enjoyable for the whole family. And the ideas that Sasha is going to discuss are at the top of our tip sheet, this same tip sheet, Enjoying Books with Reluctant Readers. Before we go to Sasha, I'm just going to check the chat box and see if there are any questions as well. Alrighty, it looks like we don't have any questions, so we will keep moving. Take it away, Sasha.
Thank you, Julianne, for sharing all of those strategies. I find those strategies helpful when I'm trying to read and understand a story better. Julianne might have gone some of these strategies, so I will be elaborating on a few of these. The first is to incorporate art. By creating art, your child can get creative, explore new textures and materials by creating collages, drawings, paintings, sculptures even about the book. You can join in on the fun and use a variety of art tools such as crayons, colored pencils, paint, clay, and so forth. For example, with this story, we gave ideas like drawing your favorite part of the story or creating a comic book. These are just two examples that you can do with your child at home. It is important that you tap into your child's artistic interests when thinking about which supplies are available to you and what kind of project you would like to create with your child. Next, you can allow your child to choose books and where to read them. Children can be more engaged and motivated to sit for a story if they are genuinely interested in the topic. If your child is nonverbal or interested in a variety of topics, you can help them make a decision by presenting them with 2 books at story time. This way, they are developing self-autonomy, the ability to make independent decisions, feel included in their story time decisions, and hopefully now your child will be more interested in the story because they chose it. They can point, use words, or communicate in the best way they know how to let you know which story they want to read. You can also give a choice of physical location of where the book is being read. This may encourage your child to engage in the story with you. Next, there is incorporating movement. Some children may avoid reading because they simply do not like being in one place for a very long time. Allow your child to move around while they read, or take breaks every few pages and allow them to relax in their favorite way, like we did during our read aloud. All children have different needs, so break time can be tailored to your child. And if needed, you can use a timer as a visual aid. By incorporating movement into story time, you can increase focus and engagement. Another tip is you can use different reading materials. Literacy is everywhere. I want to highlight the definition of literacy. Literacy is the ability to comprehend, interpret, and create, so read and write, different kinds of texts and materials. This means that we are constantly engaging with our literacy abilities throughout the day. You can engage your child with literacy using books, magazines, and game instructions, TV shows, movies, songs, lyrics. They could also be reading the labels of their toy boxes, their Play-Doh containers, pointing to the words and the signs they see in the street or at the park. This could also be your child using their communication device. So if they are watching their favorite movie or show, you can ask questions like, what do you think is going to happen? Or what do you think is happening? And when you're at the store and your child picks up their favorite food without reading the words, or they notice the McDonald's sign or the Wendy's girl, celebrate these moments. This is literacy. They are noticing and comprehending these images and symbols and incorporating them into their daily lives. Literacy really is all around us. You can also make it part of routines. Research has shown that reading every day for 20 minutes has many benefits, like increasing vocabulary and reading stamina. If your child is unable to sit for 20 minutes, that is okay. You can increase time in increments as your child is easing into story time routines. Children thrive off routines, especially our kiddos who are so used to their routines at school. Time can be very abstract, however. So if you provide your child with a visual, maybe like a schedule, it doesn't have to be fancy, they will be able to have expectations of how their day is going to go, and they will have the time to prepare themselves for story time. Lastly, you can create a family bookshelf. You can do this alone or together. Children learn from adults in their lives. Model the reading behaviors you want to see. If they see you get excited about going to the family bookshelf and reading with enthusiasm, they may develop the same love for reading. And if you don't have many physical books at home, that is all right. Remember that reading is all around us. Literacy is all around us. So you can draw attention to yourself when you are reading. For example, when you're using your phone, you can say, I'm reading something on my phone. Or when you're reading a magazine, I am reading a magazine. Or I am reading the ingredients of this tomato sauce. I am reading a recipe to cook dinner tonight, and so forth. Remember that reading is all around us, and we just have to bring attention to it and engage our children in fun ways. We will pause here for any questions or comments.
Thanks, Sasha. So we actually do have a question in the chat box, and the question is from Vinnie Marie, and she says that she has 2 boys who struggle with reading and therefore are reluctant readers. So they're reluctant because it's challenging for them, and she encourages them to read in many different creative ways, such as shared reading, etc., and they often would rather be read to or listen to a read aloud. Is this hurtful? I feel as though this type of reading is helpful. They should be encouraged to read themselves rather than to be read to.
Well, I like that you're spending the time reading with them, and thank you for asking your question. What you can do, they actually learn from adults when you're reading to them, but maybe to ease them into reading, maybe you guys can take turns when you're reading the story. So if, let's say, you start a page and then they read a sentence and then goes back to you, just having the time, the turn taking might make them more engaged and more excited to read if they see that the whole family is getting to read together.
And I just want to add on to that. I think it's really important, if we want to encourage kids to read on their own, they have to build that love of reading. So I think it's great for you to continue reading in the ways that they love. And then you can continue to challenge them at the same time so that they still retain that love of reading and that it doesn't feel like something negative to them. Thanks for asking that question. We'll see. I think that was our only one, so we will keep moving. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to talk about something that might be worrying you right now, and that is your child's progress in reading or really in any skill area. So writing, math, social skills. And so we wanted to share some tips that might be helpful in addressing slow progress that you might be seeing right now, or skill regression, which is when students lose the skills that they previously had. So the first tip we wanted to give you to keep in mind is that children are learning a lot right now. So right now, kids are living through a global pandemic, and that's something that none of us have ever experienced before. And so they're gaining a new perspective on school, on life, on the world around them. And so even though learning looks much different than what we anticipated maybe 5 months ago, it doesn't mean that there's an absence of learning. It's simply a different type of learning. So that's something to just keep in mind. That being said, we want all students to make academic progress and not lose the gains that they made while they were in school. So you may have heard of the summer slide, when students lose skills over the summer because they're not at school. But right now, it will have been even longer since they were last in a school building. So it might feel kind of daunting. And trying to combat that summer slide can feel overwhelming. But keep in mind that kids are very resilient, and it's possible that if and when things get back to normal, their learning will bounce back. Even still, there are still some things that you can do at home to kind of help this problem. So often we feel like any type of teaching or skill building, it has to be complicated. There's no way it possibly could be effective if it's not something fancy. But really, as long as we're keeping the conversation going, we're keeping the kids' brains working and thinking about academic skills, that can be so beneficial. Their brains are still working. So earlier, Sasha mentioned how literacy is everywhere. And I think that's true for every subject area. So reading, writing, math, social studies, art, and any other subject. If they are noticing and making connections to their everyday lives and those academic areas, it can have a great impact. Simply engaging in conversation about academics with you or with other kids can really be beneficial. So whether you're using the reading tips that we shared today, or maybe you're singing together, or you're using a notebook to draw or jot down interesting things that they notice on a walk to the park, or they're writing their own stories, or their own books, or maybe they're even looking for math in unusual places. So maybe you're going on a walk and they're spotting all the shapes that they can on the buildings, or they are adding up the prices of your groceries. Anything. Their brains are working, they're building new thinking skills, and they're practicing the skills that they already have. And all of that can help to prevent regression. Another thing that you can do if your child has an IEP and receives special education services is you can take a look at their IEP and refresh yourself on their goals and what they're working on. So if you just simply read over their goals and you think, okay, where can I fit this skill into everyday life at home? Where can I build in conversation or activity about this goal? This can be really helpful. So for example, let's say your child has a math goal about counting. You could connect it to a real life activity. So maybe you have them help count your pennies, or maybe if they're working on fractions, you can have them help you bake using measuring cups. So these are just two math examples, but really when you take a look at any of your child's IEP goals, I think that you'll find that there are ways that you can touch on them throughout your day. If you don't have a copy of your child's IEP, you can reach out to the IEP team to request a copy of it. So you can reach out to someone at the school, like the teacher, one of their service providers, even the principal or a school psychologist. Or if your child is in preschool, maybe you're reaching out to the Committee on Preschool Special Education to ask for a copy of the IEP so that you can access it. Since everything is remote right now, you would have to give consent to receive it electronically. And also, just so you know, if you're having trouble getting a copy of your IEP, please feel free to reach out to our helpline, to include NYC's helpline. We can help you troubleshoot. We can help you figure out what your next step should be. And Rich will share the number in the chat box again, and it's also included in those resources that you received by email. Another thing is if your child doesn't have an IEP, but during remote learning you've noticed some things that are worrisome to you and you want your child to be evaluated, you can still request an evaluation right now, even though the school buildings are for the most part closed. So simply writing a letter, requesting an evaluation, and giving it to the school or to the Committee on Preschool Special Education or the Committee on Special Education, you can get the ball rolling on that evaluation. If you have questions or you would like that process explained a bit more in depth, please, again, feel free to reach out to our helpline. We can one-on-one explain to you how the process goes, and we also have some additional resources that we can share with you regarding that process. Another tip that I wanted to give you is that it's helpful to document as much as you can. So first off, if there are any services that your child was supposed to receive that they're not receiving, so maybe they were supposed to get speech 3 times a week and they weren't getting it, or maybe they were only getting it 1 time, keep track of this every time a service was missed. And then the other thing to keep track of is those skills that you're noticing regression in. So at this time, you as the family members, you're the closest source of data for the schools. You're watching them learn every day. You're often helping them, and you're seeing their learning even more than their teachers are. And so if you see any type of skill regression, you can keep track of it. So let's say you notice that your child, when the school's closed, they had 50 sight words, and now you're noticing they only have 25. That's important data for the schools and for their teachers. And so if you keep track of that, maybe make a chart that you jot down things you notice periodically, or even just like a note on your phone Nothing fancy, just something to sort of keep track and document what you're seeing with the dates. It can be really helpful, not only for the teachers, so that they know what to address when school is back in session, but also it might help to get additional services down the line if you have that documented evidence that shows that skills were lost during remote learning. So those are a few ideas for things that you can do if you're worried about your child's progress. And now I'm going to pass it over to Sasha, who's going to share a few more tips.
Thanks, Julianne. So it may be helpful to reach out to the school by email, whether it's teachers or service providers, their guidance counselor, social workers, or the principal, to let them know what is going on. For younger children, you can contact your Committee of Preschool Special Education, CPSC, to begin an evaluation process, or contact your CPSC administrator if you're having any concerns. They may have tips for you, or at the very least, you're putting it on their radar. If your child is not in school over the summer, there still may be some school professionals working or checking their email that can help. And regardless, you are creating a paper trail documenting your efforts and your child's needs should this be necessary down the line. Another thing you can do to get some help and support is to attend an online parent support group meeting. INCLUDEnyc has 2 parent support groups, one in English and one in Spanish. You can sign up on our website, includenyc.org. We will drop the links to the next support groups in the chat. It is a great opportunity to get tips from other parents who are going through similar situations, to get ideas on how to advocate for your child, and it is simply a way to chat and vent during stressful times. INCLUDEnyc has other online workshops as well. You can sign up for all of them on our website. These are great opportunities to stay up to date on what is going on with the education system right now, and to get some new information on how to navigate during these uncertain times. Some upcoming workshops are tips for getting your child to wear a mask on August 3rd, Instagram live event
Thanks.
Any concerns about your child's education, including questions about progress or regression, special education, remote learning, their individualized education programs, or anything else relating to young people with disabilities, literacy as well, please reach out to our helpline. The English line is 212-677-4660. There are also interpretation services on this line in any language. The Spanish line is 212-677-4668. You can also access help via our website at includenyc.org. We really want you to know that we're here to help if you need anything.
Thanks, Sasha. So I noticed that Sasha froze on my end, and just in case anyone else lost audio, I'm just going to review the events that she was sharing. So we have on August 3rd, tips for getting your child to wear a mask. We have an Instagram live event on responding to children's feelings and emotions at home on August 4th. And then we have a 2-part series webinar exploring the early years, and that's in Spanish on August 5th and August 6th.
Thanks, Julianne.
So with that, we have a few more minutes to answer some questions. And I noticed that there is a question in the Q&A box. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to drop those in as we go. And then if anything pops into your head later on, or if you have something that's more personal, again, please feel free to reach out to our helpline so you can talk to an educator like myself or Sasha, and we can get you some more in-depth help. So one of the questions that we have in the Q&A is, do you have any tips on reading to 2 kids at different ages, 2 and 6? Often we choose 1 book each. So I think one tip that I can give, I think it's a great idea to choose 1 book each. I also think it could be really fun to have your 6-year-old read to the younger child. So putting them in charge a little bit, letting them act as the teacher. And if they're reading a book that is more for the level of the 2-year-old, then it's a chance for them to kind of like show off and show their skills. And it can be really fun and engaging for the older student and the younger student as well. So that's just one idea. Sasha, you might have another idea to throw in there.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Those are some really great ideas, and I think that both can be engaging for both your 2-year-old and your 6-year-old. But if you would like some more suggestions, please feel free to call our helpline.
And I just want to add in there, we could be reading one book like we were today, but asking different levels of questions. So maybe you're reading a book on your 6-year-old's level, and your 2-year-old is reading with you. So you say to your 2-year-old, what do you see in the picture? And you can just let them name. I see a girl, I see a tree, I see a book. And then for the 6-year-old, maybe you're asking a bit more complicated questions like, what do you think will happen next? Or how do you think the character is feeling? So you can really tailor the reading time with the question that you're asking. All right, let's see if there are any more questions. Okay, it looks like that was our only question. Let's check the chat box just in case. All right, I don't see any additional questions. So I think that's it.
Thank you so much to the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities and all of you for participating in this event with us. Please be sure to check out our website, INCLUDEnyc, for more updates, information, and events. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter so you can stay up to date. Stay cool and safe, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.